Pipe Network presents.
On this episode of season 4, let's talk.
It's almost always about family because I really value my family. And it's one thing that I learned that life is short and you only get to be with them in one lifetime. To be inspirational about it is probably for me is being too pretentious because you never really you never really get along all the time with your family. There will always be fights. There will always be things to issues within the family, and that's one thing that I really appreciate the most. It's weird, no? I appreciate the issues, I appreciate the fights, I appreciate the bickering within family members because it's for me it's a sign that they care.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and I'm your host Rajiv Doreswamy. And this show aims to help reach out to those who are currently struggling in life and to remind you that life is indeed beautiful when you're inspired to make it your own. Before we get into this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to whichever platform you are using. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at The Rajiv Show. Hey folks, welcome back to The Rajiv Show. And my guest today, oh my gosh, I don't know how to introduce her because getting her was harder than ever having a conversation with her. She used to be a member of course, the famous Brain Cell podcast, and I've always wanted to have a conversation with all of them, but I got the legendary Hillary Aguada. Hillary, how are you doing, girl?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you for having me, Rajiv. And actually, ewan ko ba kung bakit mo kami nilalagay sa, you're putting us on a high pedestal. We're
Yeah,
just normal people. We're just friends. But it's an honor to be part of your show right now. And thank you. Thank you for having me. And I know it's been such a long running, it's been so long since you asked us, and
yeah,
I'm
true.
sorry that we just you I just answered a couple of days back.
Yeah,
So since you know what it is, you know how it is to have a
true,
child.
true.
Yon. Yeah.
And for those who are listening, what we are talking about in this part of the introduction, I've been a big fan of the Brain Cells podcast. Actually, them and their collaboration with the Ziggy and Rusty. When they collaborated, that's when I fell in love with all of them. And of course, Hillary and the gang are still a member of the PPD community. So it's more like they're like family to me, even though I've never met them personally. So that's for all those listening. That's this is one member of my PPD family as well. So yeah,
You know that meetup that you're talking about? We could probably set that up once the pandemic is over, and we've been planning to go to Baguio, and maybe once we get to Baguio, we'll be able to meet you and finally,
yeah. Iiyak ako
have
dun eh.
that hangout.
For sure,
Don't.
iiyak ako dun. OMG, Hillary! Yeah. Before we get into the conversation, aside from the awesome introduction that I gave this legendary person who I'm speaking to right now, could you give a little bit of background about yourself, Hillary?
Um, well, I'm not sure if anyone's going to be that interested in my life, but maybe let me start with, I guess, how I met Rajiv. So I met Rajiv because as we started off with this episode, he mentioned that I'm part of a podcast called Brain Cells. I know, it's not that well known as Rajiv. Rajiv is insisting. There are a couple of podcasters that still know us, but it's a very short running podcast, and we've decided to go our separate ways and pursue different, avenues of life. But yes, that's how we met Rajiv, and my God, his energy, our energy in podcast PH is it can't be matched. Hindi namin mapantayan yung energy din ni Rajiv. Sa sobrang excitement niya, sa sobrang excited niyang makausap kami, and it's something that we really appreciate about Rajiv because he's been there from the very start, especially right right after our guesting with the Skeptic and the Rusty, Ziggy and Russell, and they're most likely considered as legends. They have a long running podcast. And yeah, and that's how I eventually really met Rajiv. And to be honest, if we have the chance to go back to Baguio, yeah. Because me, Lucila, and Aiko studied in Baguio in for I guess ako 6 years akong tumira sa Baguio no, so it's like my second home, and Lucila and Aiko lived there for 4 years. So yun nga, parang it's one of the places that once this pandemic is over, it's gonna be the first ones that it's gonna be the first one that we will definitely visit. And one thing for sure is we're going to meet Rajiv there. So yeah, aside from that, you may want to ask me questions because I am going on
No, that's
roll
the
here
yeah.
without guidance.
No, I love your
Ayun,
energy. Yeah.
that's my life. Recently. Recently lang naman.
Yeah. I love your
Anything,
energy.
would you like me to continue pa?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm always all ears. When you guys speak, I'm always all ears. I'm laser focused to you guys. And
Wow.
I love you guys. I don't know what else to add to that. That's why I've always wanted I always wanted to have you guys in the Rajiv show because I love the unmatched energy, as Hillary said. So yeah, let's travel back. Let's take a time travel and let's go back into the past,
All right.
and let's go back into high school. If you and I were high school if you and I were in high school, who were you in high school? Are you the geeky type? Are you the extroverted athletic type? Or are you the one with the books, you
Oh.
know?
Okay. So one of the many things that people are always surprised to hear from me is that I never liked high school.
Oh.
Yeah. Most of when you ask, it's common that people would answer, "Oh, high school is the best era of my life." Diba? Parang it's the best moment of my life. Pero
Hmm.
it's for me it wasn't. I've always considered myself as the oddball,
Hmm.
the outcast.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why people keep telling me na popular daw ako, ganun. Like, a lot of people know me. But I feel like a lot of people know me because I was obnoxious.
Hmm.
You know, I was loud. I was this loud person who always struts her stuff. Parang mahilig ako sa anime. If people don't know that, now you know. Nagpapaka-otaku ako, nagtatakbo ako sa hallway, Naruto style, ganun.
Nice.
But I'm not really a fan of Naruto. But yeah, yung mga old 90s, 80s anime yung mga gusto ko. Anyway, if you and I were classmates in high school, I'd probably be the jock, the athlete.
Oh.
I would always be that person who's dark skinned kasi sobrang tan ko nung nagsiswimming pa ako. So, if you guys want to check that out, shout out to MR of Sidelines PH. I've also been a guest on MR's podcast, and we talked about swimming
Yeah.
together with Randre, because we both were swimmers in the past. So
Hmm.
yun, I'd probably, Rajiv, be that doc, the athlete that always goes to school,
Hmm.
carrying an extra duffel bag of training clothes, to after school training agad, ganun,
Hmm.
magpapakaitim ulit sa swimming pool.
Hmm.
So yeah, ayun. I wonder who you are. How about you? Who will you be during high school?
My high school uh my high school is actually divided. A portion of it was
Really?
all. My portion of it was divided because during when I grew up here in Philippines, especially I grew up here in La Trinidad, and then I think around I think I mentioned this during the season two that 2005 that was I
Mm-hmm.
think fifth standard, fifth grade. We call it standard in India. I
Oh.
use the Indian term. Around fifth standard, fifth grade, I had to move from here to there, so I had to repeat it. And then that was 2005, and it was a different. I had combination of both worlds, and it was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I got to learn the culture in India, which was really a fascinating thing. And the experience is one thing that I always love to share is that and I've also mentioned this in the podcast before that when I went to India, life was much more different. It was weird in its sense, and there's a lot of stuff that happened to me in good ways. That actually from India, the whole experience being in India for the amount of years that I've been there kind of gave me that confidence to express myself. Although many people interpreted me when I came back, but yeah, that's the feeling, that's the expression, and yeah, probably if I were to classify myself. Post post 2005, there was a period in my life where I was a Michael Jackson. I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, of course, until he
Oh
died.
my God.
So yeah, I think I made an episode. Yeah, I think I made an episode in season two as well. And yeah, I was a Michael
Mm-hmm.
Jackson fan. I had even though my pants was getting smaller and smaller, I never really wanted to change my pants. Although they were telling me you need to buy new pants with the uniform and everything. No, I wanted high. I wanted Michael Jackson high so that they could see the sock. Everything from the school attire, and the thing and the folding, everything is like I was a
Yeah.
huge MJ fan, and I became popular over the period. And then of course, yeah, the lost years, but that is the nutshell. Probably we'd have gel well. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's the portion of my life in a
I think
nutshell.
from what you're,
Mm, yeah,
yeah, exactly. And from what I'm seeing right now, I guess there are still manifestations of, you know, how big of a fan you are of Michael Jackson. Because one thing is your hair, the way your energy is always up. And Michael Jackson is known for his high energy performances, live performances, and he doesn't seem to be running out of breath. And that's one thing that really strikes me
yeah.
about you, and that sank deep into my thoughts, into my brain cells, that okay, if this person is so energetic, that's Rajiv, that's the one, that's the dude. And yeah, I wanted to say something. Teka lang, I'd rather, mm, yeah, we definitely have different perspectives of ourselves,
Yeah.
especially if we look into the past, like in
Mm,
retrospect, I'm sorry. um so I Here's what I'm proposing, or
mm,
here's how I want it to go. How about this? What do you think of me, or what do you think I would be in high school if you and I were classmates? Was that the first question? Did I answer it
yeah.
correctly,
Yeah,
kanina?
you did
Okay,
answer it.
so
You did answer
okay.
it, yeah.
So who would I be in your perspective naman? Kasi kanina it was my perspective. Because it's
Mm,
different. People have different perspective of us. They know
yeah.
different identities of one person. So who
Yeah.
would I be in your in the short time that you know me?
It's interesting. I've never had the experience of having a question turned to me, but this is amazing. This took me. Yeah, this was expect the unexpected. Good question. I'd answer that in such a way that I look up to you guys. Like I mentioned in the introduction, I always look up to you guys. And when I met you, Hillary, I knew when I was watching you guys, I noticed how, for me, I'm a guy who pays attention to details, the movements, the
Mm-hmm.
gestures, the body gestures. Of course, you guys were doing vidcasts. the brain cells have a YouTube channel. I think you still have the YouTube channel, and I always tune in there because you guys energy, the energy of Aiko, the energy, and you know how to compose, and you know how to, you have the artistry, subconscious. I'm sure this is a compliment, but you have the artistry of maintaining the energy that you want to emulate. And that's one thing why I love you guys. I mean, you got two extreme, energetic personalities, and you got the calm. And Hillary, the way I see Hillary is like you're in the center where you can pivot to the madness, and you can also pivot to the same, to the the sane portion, and that's why I really appreciate you. And if you and I were classmates, and I knew, I'd back away. I'd back away, and
Really?
because yeah, because the funny part about that is, I'm always scared. I'll tell you. I'll admit it up front. I'm always scared of people who, have that vision, that leadership vision, not as an intimidation, but as a sign of respect. I mean, it's how I look up to people and how I see them. And when, especially leader types, I've always had this bad experience, uh, asserting myself too often like a pest. And then when they're doing something busy, those are the times where subconsciously sometimes my head goes crazy. I start bugging. So yeah, that is the
Oh.
funny part about me. And yeah, that's quite an experience for me. That's why mostly I'm always misinterpreted, as I mentioned before. But yeah, uh,
Mhm.
I learned to find my
Funny.
community. And
It's funny that you mentioned um what do you call this? You feel like it's one of the things that what was the word, the exact word that you said? Misunderstood, misinterpret you.
yeah.
And like I said, no, a while ago, I always viewed myself as the odd one out or
Hmm.
the outcast.
Hmm.
And it's weird. It's not really weird, but I do get it a lot. I
Hmm.
could be really intimidating now.
Hmm.
But it turns out, if you guys meet me for the very first time, like in person,
Yeah.
yes, I do have that towering over you because I'm really tall, I'm really big for my age,
Yeah.
and people would often be scared of me. And don't be scared of me, Rajiv, when we meet in
Yeah.
person. Hindi ako nakakatakot, promise. Meron lang talaga akong resting, can I say it?
Yeah.
Resting
Yeah.
bitch face.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people think that I'm really a snob, but it's really the opposite.
Yeah.
And guys, mind you, to all the listeners and to all who know brain cells, if you think what Rajiv says is right, that I am the center person, like I could adjust well to, being calm and then being energetic, sound down below. Sound down below. Write a comment or something. But if you think that I'm the scary person, the person who's very intimidating, let me know as well. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Lucila,
Hmm.
she's a force to be reckoned with.
I
She's
was
she's
gonna get
someone
into
that
that. Yeah, I was gonna get into that. That actually,
people
that thought.
always
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
people always think na ako yung nakakatakot, pero even I and
Yeah.
Lucila is younger than I am,
Huh.
and that's saying something.
Yeah.
Lucila, I'm scared of Lucila. I'm scared of her getting mad at me. But it's fun to it's she's fun, really really fun to be with. And I am too. Aiko is
Yeah.
also fun to be with, and also Randre. And every time we hang out, it's just always loud energy. And
Yeah.
I hope, yeah. If how about this? If Rajiv and I were classmates, I always think Rajiv would be the person who always has his guitar on the corner, surrounded by other dudes, singing a lot of songs, and all the other girls wanting to learn how to play the guitar. Cause I have that one classmate like you who always,
Really?
always has his guitar. Yes,
If I were to
and
share
alam mo yung
something,
parang,
if I were to share
yeah,
something,
go ahead.
the funny part about that, the music, the musicality that came out, it all, the music portion of me, it all came out post high school actually. This was during, of course, the year that I call the lost years. That was when it was the creative experimental period I mentioned. it was so that was the moment where actually not just guitar, I played bass. I've dabbled
Mm-hmm.
into a lot of instruments, and of course it carried over to the 5 years that I've spent in college. And it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of like it's a genetic thing. Actually, my dad's a musician, my mom's a musician, so I kind of carried that, but mostly I was more in the arts crafts kind of department. And I think my interview with my childhood friend Amarnath, we made a comic book
Mm-hmm.
when comics was starting to say. I was fascinated with comics, and I'm sure for those who are tuning in, I'm sure they all know the famous Superman pedophile creep that's here in the side of
Oh,
my
Jesus
thing.
Christ.
I'm a huge. I know, in the Superman here. Not, I didn't mean Superman as a pedophile. The poster is the side of the poster is where Superman looks like he's creeping into the video. That's why I call him a little. I think, but I love Superman. I'm a Batman fan. I'm a Superman DC fan. So I was more in the art
Oh,
stuff.
funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing.
Go ahead.
That's the thing that I love. Comics was my main, and then of course there was a period where I carried over with comics and then dancing the Michael Jackson era. Back then I was short haired
Mm-hmm.
because the rules, and then the lost years, music and music analysis, the learning, and of course throughout the whole period there was always comics. It was like the longest relationship that I've had almost for the years to come, and it's still I still love comics. I still admire the artistry, but now I'm kind of pivoting off from music and arts, and I want to try new things. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's me in a nutshell.
Actually, that's really amazing to know that you're a person who's really, well, I wanted to say spread out thinly, but you're a person who has a different, a lot of different talents. You know, you're very charismatic in such a way that you're sociable, you're easy to talk to, and by also you came from a line of talented parents. They're all musically inclined, so that naturally comes to you. And one thing that I am also almost always jealous of people is that parang sobrang effortless. It's always so effortless with other people. Like, I wanted to learn the guitar. It's one of my frustrations during
Huh.
high school. Well, I had like three guitars. Yung parang dumaan sa akin tatlong gitara.
Oh,
All of them nasira, napahiram, hindi na
sayang.
nabalik, ganun. Parang, yeah, I know, right? Plus, I know the basic, I know the basic chords. I know
Yeah.
how to strum. I know how to pluck. It's just that I feel like it's not naturally for me. Hindi yun yung talent ko, parang ganun. So it's always something that I'm still currently frustrated, and that's what I sort of envy about you, that buti pa siya, buti pa si Rajiv. He knows how to play the bass, he knows how to play the guitar, he probably knows how to play the piano, he probably even knows how to play the flute or a saxophone. I don't know. This dude is talented.
Yeah.
That's what's running in my head. So yeah. And funny thing that you mentioned as well, yung parang iba't ibang era ng
Hmm.
high school life mo.
Yeah.
It happens, no? Like, I think first year high school ako, my era was anime.
Hmm.
Like, puro anime. Bukang bibig ko anime talaga.
Hmm.
Nagko-cosplay. People don't know this. But yes, I cosplayed before.
Awesome. First time on the Rajiv show. You guys are hearing
First,
this first. Yes.
yeah, but don't look for the pictures. You're not gonna find you're not gonna find beautiful pictures of, yung mga sophisticated cosplay. No, it's
No
not. It's the
worries.
old fashioned cosplay na puro ukay-ukay yung ano.
Don't worries. I don't think the
Next,
cosplay FBI guys are looking for old photos and all that stuff. So I think you're good with that.
hopefully. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And then the next phase was emo phase, like Michelangelo tuloy. Woo! The fuck is Michelangelo? My Chemical Romance. I wanted to
All
say
black.
My Chemical Romance, and then it went to Michael Jackson, and then it went to painting, which is why I said Michelangelo.
Hmm.
Anyway, wait, Michelangelo is a sculptor, right? Anyway, and then the next era was K-pop. I dare
Uh-huh.
you guys, to all the listeners. look for that dance cover we did. I'm I'm not sure if you guys will be able to find it. But if you do, sige, first one to find that, except Lucila, Aiko, Randre, and everyone who's in Olongapo, except for those people. First one to find that will get 500 peso load from me. That's a
Wow,
promise.
that's
That's a
a
promise.
challenge. Okay,
Pero hindi ka
listeners.
kasali, Rajiv, ha?
Sure, sure. I'm not
Hindi
there.
ka
I'm not there.
kasali kasi host ka.
No worries, no worries. I got
All
you.
right. All right. So yun, yeah, it's fun to reminisce. Which is
Hmm,
one thing I like about one of your season 2, that you were able
hmm.
to reminisce your childhood, your high school life,
Yeah,
and it's a great practice for storytelling. One of the best traits of being a podcast.
yeah. The funny
Anyway,
thing,
I've been rambling on.
yeah, the funny thing is, you've opened up a lot of boxes, and before, and I kind of wrote it down. And with all these boxes that you've opened up, I really want to understand the Hillary. I hope there'll be a story somewhere here in our conversation. You take us back to the olden age, if you have that period. But first
Oh,
of all, before we continue our conversation, folks, we're just gonna have a little bit of short break, and then we'll be right back.
sure.
Yeah. Do you want to get great deals? Go to Pipe Marketplace. Visit pipenetwork.co/marketplace and use the promo code TRS to get exclusive discounts. Chat with them now. Basta Podcast, Pipe yan.
Mainit na diskusyunan,
Masarap na kwentuhan,
maninamnam na usapan,
at nakakagising na balitaktakan.
parang kape lang. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Moya Angeline
Join us in our conversations at Coffee na Lang Dear Podcast.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and my guest, oh god, my guest is an amazing conversationalist. I'm sure you guys have heard the first half of the conversation. Hillary Aguada, one member of course, the Brain Cells podcast, and I think you guys can stream the other old episodes. I hope the other old episodes are there on
They're still there. We're not gonna remove them.
they're on YouTube and stuff. Oh, that was supposed to be for the social media sections portion, but never mind. Moving on. Uh, uh, I asked Hillary to actually ask her if she can shout out to her fellow brain cells mates, and I also want to shout out to them. But I want ladies first, kaya ikaw na lang muna.
Sure. So guys, hi. Welcome back to Brain Cells. You're unfiltered. Joke lang. But that was the intro.
Yeah,
I
I
kind of missed
remember.
doing the intro, pero yeah, shout out to my girls, Lucila, Aiko, and of course, my main man, bro. Joke lang, si Randre. Shout out to you, bro. I kind of miss talking to you guys. Really. Gawa na ulit tayo ng podcast. Ibang ano naman. Ibang title naman. Pero de,
Awesome.
joke lang. So yun,
Awesome.
hi.
Yeah,
And
let's
also, if you guys wanna check, ay sorry,
Yeah,
okay
yeah.
na ba i-plug ko na ba to? Nandito na ba tayo sa portion na pwede na ako mag-plug?
Hindi pa, mamaya pa yun. Exciting ka naman.
Ay, wala pa ako. Sige, mamaya na ako mag-plug.
Hindi ko i-edit yan, ha?
Pinlog pa rin, no, kahit wala na. Okay
Yeah.
lang, sige. We're unfiltered, uncensored nga eh. So, go.
Yeah. So,
Sige.
from all the information that I've gathered, I mean, you are a phenomenal person, and I wanna have a conversation in correlation to the word art, because you mentioned you've done swimming, you've done cosplay, painting, K-pop. I mean, you've unboxed a lot of things in the first half of the conversation. I gotta ask, with all that experience in your bag, do you consider yourself, what do you consider yourself as a form of an artist, if you put yourself in the idea of being an artist?
Mm-hmm. Well, we put it that way. Art is something that can be interpreted in different ways, and can be manifested in different ways. So if you're gonna ask me if I'm an artist, I feel like I'm an artist in some level, on some level. Probably Hindi, joke lang, wag akong maging pretentious. Ayoko rin maging pretentious. Guys, I'm no artist. I'm a frustrated artist. I wanted to from the very start, from from my childhood. Let's start with childhood.
Yeah.
I love drawing. Like every week yata akong bumibili ng crayons nung nagpapabili pala, hindi ako yung bumibili. Nagpapabili ng crayons sa mama ko nun. Like I really love drawing because you know those 8 boxes of crayons? I mean, the box of 8 crayons ng Crayola. I speed through it like within a week. Nauubos ko yun. Legit.
Hmm.
Kaka-drawing ko ng mga stick figures, bahay, all that, princesses and all that.
Hmm.
And I guess that's one thing that my mom thought that she could hone. You know, she perceived it as my talent. And then years passed on, and different influences came into my life, and I saw Binibining Pilipinas, Miss Universe, and that's the time that I wanted to be Binibining Pilipinas or Miss Universe.
Hmm.
It seems funny now because I am far way off from that,
Yeah.
dream. Like
You've
I'm
graduated.
so far away from that dream. Yeah, I graduated and never gonna happen. But yes, it was one of my crazy dreams na talagang gusto namin sumali ako ng I'm not sure if you know this, yung Little Miss Philippines, yung mga ganun, lahat talaga ng kayang gawin ng mama ko na ipag-muse ako. So she
Yeah.
does that. And that's one way, one form of art.
Hmm.
She enrolled me in dance lessons, painting lessons. She even enrolled me in ballet lessons, all that. She wanted me to do a lot of things, no? And if you're familiar with what's that saying? Jack of all trades, master of none.
And master of none. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that haunted me years later as I grew up. Like I know all these things. I learned all these things. But later on I'm not a master of any of them. Except
Yeah.
for maybe swimming. But
Yeah.
it's frustrating kasi marunong ako pero hindi ako magaling.
Yeah.
And it manifested during college. I got into UP, and it's the common thinking, I guess, I'm not sure. Join me if you know, agree with me. Pero nung nakapasok ako ng UP, akala ko ang galing-galing ko. Yeah. Pero marunong lang pala ako. So those are the things that keeps haunting me. And with your question, do I consider myself as an artist? Maybe in my head, wishful thinking, I guess I'm an artist. Pero if you look at me professionally, I'm no artist. I'm far off from being a great dancer, a great singer, I'm far off from being a great drawer, sasabihin ko, bobo. A great painter there. Oh my God, drawer. Ayun. Ang haba nung sinabi ko, no? Sorry.
But I love it. I love it. I agree. I agree with the sing. It's tough, especially starting out, and sometimes it takes a lot of determination. One thing I wanted to highlight in the conversation about swimming is that when you got into the sport, this is I want to connect this to inspiration and motivation. Is that when you
All right.
get into the sport, what is the mindset that goes through your mind when you get into the thing? Because to me, I look at what you've done: cosplay, painting, all of this stuff. These are arts. Of course, I understand where you're coming from, but still, the fact that you have the ability to still pursue certain things that make you happy, and that is more power to you. The fact that you've done that, that's more power to you. And coming back to
Aw.
what I'm trying to say is that I look at swimming and sports as well as art. I think I had a conversation with a baseball player, and I asked him about his what he does as a baseball player, and I look at it as an art because when you're swimming, you're in the moment and all that stuff. You are also creating something. You're creating a legacy. You're painting a legacy in the way that your name, your brand, you're bringing the country and all that stuff, and all that. I just want to ask, when you That was a very long question before the question.
It's a
Uh,
long question.
I know.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
the
I'm absorbing it. Don't worry.
the main question that I wanted to know is, when you got into swimming, did the discipline of being a swimmer as an athlete ever take, of course, now in the life that you have, that does it does the work ethic or the discipline ever interject? Does
Mhm.
it have a story and stuff like that?
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll take that challenge. That's a very long question, and I'll still take it. For your first question, from what I still remember, from my brain, if I consider it as art, if it transcends as art, swimming. Yes, I think I consider it as art because the form, the the dive, the art of the art of the strokes, the rhythm. The splash of water is like music to our ears.
Mm,
Ang cliche, pero you're right. Yeah, I guess art is manifested in life in many ways, and simply it's not simply boxed in strictly in paper and pen and colors and all that, or
mm,
music. It's definitely seen in different aspects of life. And yes, and my mindset, um during the time that I was still a swimmer, it was my life.
mm,
I every time I'm in the water, every time I go on competitions, I feel like that's the real me.
mm,
That's that's who I really am. And um what do you call, naiiyak ako kasi every time I remember my days,
mm,
my swimming days, I always feel teary eyed because I consider it as my first love. It's still and will always be my first love.
mm,
It's the one thing that I stuck to. It's the one thing that I committed to before all those hours of training. And my mindset back then
mm,
is that I'm enjoying it. I'm only enjoying it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter if I win a competition. Although yeah, it might really matter to my mother because she invested a lot in me. But
mm,
to me, it was something that reflects who I am. I'm a water person. I'm a very competitive person. I like everything to be in a process. I like everything to be, you know, timely. As in swimming, you always get timed. You
mm,
wanted to finish first, you want to break your records, and you become very competitive with yourself, not just your opponents, but yourself as well, because
mm,
the only thing that matters is that you always break your previous time record.
mm,
And that's the thing, I guess. Up till now, it still manifests in my life because I want to be the better version of myself from yesterday. See? And that's one thing that I was able to bring to my current life right now, even though I'm no longer a swimmer, is teamwork. The essence of teamwork, which is why I guess, Rajiv, that's the thing that you um were able to notice in our podcast, in our vidcast, that I'm the center person. I'm like I feel you feel like I could be the glue that you
mm,
know handle that sticks them together, and also be the person who adjusts well in different environments, in different personalities of people. And
mm,
that's the thing I learned from swimming: teamwork. You have to be able to work with different types of people. You have to be able to understand what makes them tick, what makes them annoyed, what makes them motivated, so that you guys can win a competition. And also the discipline, I guess. The discipline in the sense of um sticking to the time, sticking to the training,
mm,
sticking to whatever the coach says, sticking to rules. I
mm,
find myself hard to break rules. I cannot.
mm,
I cannot. If ever I do,
mm.
well, I always you get anxious. Like, shit, ala, may na-break akong rule. Hala, ayoko mahuli. Hala, ayoko,
Ah, interesting.
the anxiety of it.
Yeah.
That's me. So that's why I really consider myself, if anyone is able to define me, si Hillary yung swimmer. I like that.
Mm.
I like that a lot. I take pride in that a lot
Mm.
because that's who I really am.
Wow.
Ta-da!
That is
Thank you for listening to my TED talk.
that's that's inspiring. That's inspiring. I mean, I love it. I love it. I wanted to add into the countless questions that I had. um, when you get into the game, of course, with the mindset, the
Mm,
discipline, the training, all in the bag. Do
mhm.
you have a ritual where you sit down with yourself? Do you sit
Oh.
down? Do you have that kind of ritual when you go to but when you get into the game before they ring the bell or what the shoot the thing? What goes
Yeah.
through your mind before the starting before the thing before the bell or whatever the thing is called?
The gun. The
Yeah,
horn.
yeah, that
Yeah.
one.
So if for everyone to understand, so the mechanics is that um early morning you get to feel the water to warm up with other teams in the same swimming pool that you will be competing in.
Hmm,
So and then you get to know your events weeks before or
hmm,
even months before. You have to know which events that are you going to swim,
hmm,
like backstroke, freestyle, breaststroke, and all that.
hmm,
You also need to train. You also need to register your time seed, which is what we call your record, your personal record, so
hmm,
that they would know where to place you, which lane are you in, who are you going to
hmm,
be in the batch with. It's called heat, but I'll call it batch for this. Is the pool only has 8 lanes, so it can't really house or can't really accommodate 20 players at one time. So
hmm,
yeah, what goes in my head during the competition? Well, it's not during the competition. It starts from months before.
hmm,
What goes on in my head is the strategy.
hmm.
How will I beat my own time? How will I breathe? Seriously, that's a question in my head.
Really?
Paano ko hihinga? Oo. Paano ko hihinga? Anong klaseng breathing style ang gagawin ko? How will I regulate my speed?
Huh,
How the it's it I don't really like maths.
yeah,
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it to the core. I hate it with passion.
yeah.
But swimming forced me to be calculative. I need to be able to calculate fast,
Hmm,
and I need to be always at the top of my head.
hmm,
And yeah, that's a discipline that's been taught to me by swimming. So when you're called to the platform or to the diving board,
hmm,
to your lane, my ritual, because that's your first question. What
hmm,
is my ritual?
hmm.
Una, syempre, sa umaga, tatain muna ako. Joke lang. but, but
I didn't expect that, but
to take the seriousness, ano.
yeah.
Hindi, pero seryoso, ritual ko yun. Kakain muna talaga ako bago ako pumunta sa pool kasi you need to be as light as possible. But that's a ritual. That's part of my ritual.
Yeah.
And syempre, yung warm up and then you get called to your event, you go on the diving board. And my ritual is to always look side by side.
Huh.
I know, guys, if you listen to MR Villar's Sidelines.ph podcast, our episode there, where we and me and Randre were guests, you'll hear more about this. But I won't dive into it too deep in this episode. I just want to tell you guys that my ritual there is basically is for myself, and I don't really think much of the glory as people would
Hmm,
often think of. I just
hmm,
the ritual is to look at my mom. Kasi very
hmm,
very tawag dito. I always seek the approval of my mother. So
hmm,
that's one thing, I guess. But physically, the ritual would be I shake my. If you guys know Michael Phelps, he does that. He shakes his limbs. He wants his blood flow to be what do you call that? He circulates his blood flow.
hmm,
And he sprinkles water to himself. That's it. That's mostly the ritual, and there's no meaning to it for others. But for me, it gets me ready. I guess it gets other people ready as well. But I don't I'm not a very religious person. I don't pray.
Hmm.
I do shout. I shout a lot.
Hmm.
Oh, here's one thing, I guess. You found me intimidating, or if ever we meet in person, you'd be scared of me, something like that kanina
Yeah.
in the first part of of this episode. What I do is I yell. I want to do the demo here, but you might hurt your
Wake
ears.
up the
But
neighbors.
I
Yeah.
yell like a very short yell. Yeah, to wake
Yeah.
up my nerves, to wake up the neighbors, and to intimidate the competition. Yeah,
Oh.
I guess that's one. That's one. And right before I touch the water as I dive, I
Hmm.
also yell like ha. Gumaganon ako. So
Hmm.
I guess yeah, ang haba ng mga pinagsasabi ko, no? Ritual lang naman yung tinanong mo sa akin.
Oo nga eh.
Inspirational kasi gusto mo malaman, no? Sorry.
Yeah.
But there's
It's
really
fun. It's
nothing
fun.
to it.
No, but at least that gets you going. That you mentioned because I often wonder what goes through the mind because the reason why I'm asking that question is, and of course this is a recurring conversation with the other fellow podcasters and guests that I've
Mm-hmm.
had is I'm sure up to the release of this episode, everybody has seen The Last Dance. Michael Jordan's thingy. Everybody has seen it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the reason why I asked, like, what are the rituals to get you fired up? Because in his story, in his regard, his thing, his documentary, his life, is the fact that he uses anything anything means necessary to the point that he he uses it as a fire up for him in order to compete. Someone disrespects
Mm-hmm.
him in the dinner table, so he takes that up. He say, you don't talk to me, okay, I'm gonna kick your ass,
Oh.
that kind of thing. So yeah,
Damn.
that's the thing. If you guys haven't seen the documentary The Last Dance, I don't know what you guys are doing with your life, but you gotta go check it out. It's an
I'm
amazing
sorry. I will.
thing.
I will after.
It's an amazing thing. I kid you not, it's really an amazing documentary. And for even the menial things, is it not just the dinner. Someone wins something, okay, he wins that, but it's saying it's interesting thing. And yeah, that's why I wanted to know if there's some rituals. And with my previous guest that I had, baseball my baseball friend from Mainz, um, Zach
Mm-hmm.
Johnson. He also has his own. He goes into this meditation state, and then once you get into the game, he gets into the game. Nobody talks to him. It's him and the game. It's laser focus.
Yeah,
Whether it's his friend in
that
the
is true.
opposite side, he's gonna kill him. In terms
Mm-hmm.
of the gaming thing, not
Yeah.
the thing, of course. But yeah,
Yeah. Of course. Pero yeah, it's true. No, even if the one beside you or the one in front of you is your friend, as
hmm,
long as he or she is a competition, you'd you'd really be laser focused on your own game within your own bubble, if I may. So that's one thing I guess that they find really intimidating about me during that time, because
yeah,
once I am in front of my swimming lane,
hmm,
iba ako
yeah,
kapag nakatapat ako sa pool, iba ako kapag nasa bleachers lang ako. Iba
hmm,
rin ako kapag nasa labasan tayo.
hmm,
And sige, mag-tong its pa tayo, tong its ano. Mag
yeah,
bestie-bestie pa tayo, pero pagdating sa competition, it's me
yeah,
and the pool and God knows the time, 'di
yeah,
ba? So the ritual, yes. You have in competitions like that,
yeah,
if you started with that, I could have been very serious and I wouldn't have mentioned, yung pagtae ko sa umaga. But that's really part of my
yeah,
ritual. I
yeah.
really need to be light as possible,
Uh,
and that gets me going. Because if I don't, if I fail to do that in the
yeah.
morning, I'd be really grumpy, and it
Yeah.
changes my game. It really does.
It
So
affects. Yeah, that's
sorry, there's.
interesting. That's
Mm,
it's official. I mean, I've said it countless times. You are a legend in my book. I mean, a lot of people in this conversation, in the series itself, they're all legends in my book. So I mean, you guys doing what you guys love, and you know how you do it, and that
Uh-huh.
determination. And one thing that I've learned is, I think I've seen you, you kind of have that perfectionism kind of thing when things don't fall into play. I'd like to share at least
Yes.
my life, because my life's discipline the same way, because I mentioned throughout the span of, I don't know how many years, how long has it been since I've been doing comics. I'm not the pro. I'm not a really a professional artist or anything like that. Um, but the only thing that kept me going, that kept me building that relationship with that comic book, is that the things that I have in my head are not the ones that I transcribe into saying into into the paper. And for those who
Paper.
are tuning in,
Yeah.
this is the first time I'm admitting to the things that I do in art and in music at the same way, is that I'm always looking. I guess it's the funny thing, I'm always looking for some sense of perfection. And I think sometimes, even in my podcasting, my marketing tools, saying, I have the habit of missing out a word. That's why sometimes when I text people, I hate texting over the phone, because even though with the help of Grammarly, I still miss out a word in the English language that doesn't, you know, doesn't even connect. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and the whole meaning of the thing is misinterpreted, and all that stuff. But yeah, when I do my marketing stuff, I write stuff in English, I say it so that I could hear a thing. I always miss out a word at the end of the thing production. I send it out in the Facebook, wherever it is. I always have to take it back the
Mm-hmm.
moment I see that I'm missing out a word, a comma, bracket, whatever it is. I kind of get saying. And plus that, with slow internet, that's yeah. But that's my discipline, I
Mm-hmm.
think, for almost all the years now, with the music, with the learning, with the 5 years that I've learned in music. I kind of also inherited certain aspects of that. But then the perfectionism is like something, something like second nature. You can't really get away from it. So I think that's where I kind of can connect with you in the same
Mm-hmm.
regards. But yeah,
Yeah.
that that is phenomenal. I mean, I love the thing. I love how you took me to the mindset, of course, aside from the first part. But yeah, the mindset and the discipline.
You know, I noticed that you mentioned you when you're typing stuff in English, you tend to miss out on several words, not words.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with me. Don't worry, it happens to all of us. And also, part of me thinks that I'm not sure what language or what you call your language in India. Is it can you help me? What is
Uh,
it? What do you call your language in India? Indian or
for us,
Indian is a person, right?
Indian is a person, yeah. But where I stayed, this is a long explanation, shortened explanation. From where I stayed in Bangalore, the
Or
dialect is Kannada. And it's
Canada?
like when you're here in Baguio, the language here, the
Mm-hmm.
dialect here is
Dialect. Mm-hmm.
the locals. They speak in Ilocano,
Ilocano.
sometimes Ibaloy.
Uh-huh.
Ibaloy, especially here in La Trinidad,
Yes.
Ibaloy Ilocano, and that's the dialect.
Mm-hmm.
So when you travel in Bangalore, Kannada with a K, not a C, Kannada, that is their
Okay.
language. My
I
dad's
see.
lineage is they've come from Chennai, so they've come from South India. So their language at
Mm-hmm.
home is Tamil, and the English that's integrated there, that I kind of inherited, is the British English. Like trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying trucks here in the U.S. Language, we say lorry. Bin, trash bin,
Sorry.
and there's a
Uh-huh.
lot of stuff. Aside from truck and lorry, there's a lot of stuff. Sometimes, when I came back
Bit.
to college, the things that I say, the things that I say in British, people are going, "What?" I have to repeat, and I have to explain, even though I'm in a rush. Like there are some moments like that. I keep
Yeah.
shaking my head as like, but yeah,
But
British English is
exactly the
mostly.
point.
Yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
answering the same.
Yeah.
British English is mostly what we use. We don't really communicate in Tamil or Kannada or any other language.
Mm. I see. So it's British English.
Yeah.
Well, I know the fact that if there are words that are missing in your, when you type, and you are often misunderstood, it's because your brain works faster than your mouth. So or it works faster than your hand. So if you tend to try to follow the speed of your, how your brain works, it's you're going to tend to miss out. You'll tend to miss out on words. And just like me, while I'm talking, what there's a different sentence in my head, but what comes out of my mouth is different. And just like in your drawings, in your comic, what's in your head, the way you imagine it, the
Yeah.
pose, how the colors would mix, it's differently translated on paper because your brain works differently with the rest of your body, and it's a lot faster. It functions a lot faster than the rest of your body. So it's understandable. And yeah, I really am amazed by how this conversation started from
Yeah.
introduction
I
to
know. I know.
talks about childhood to how the brain functions.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Um I don't want to take the show away from you. I'm so sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. I love the energy. I'm not taking anything personally. One thing though that
Oh, that's good
I
to hear.
wanna add though is that
Have
yeah,
hmm
one thing that I wanna add though before we get into the social media plugs. Could you take us back to a particular story that you have in your a memory? Of course, I'm sure you have bags of experiences
I
as
do.
not just as a swimmer, as a cosplayer, painting, any story that, of course, hasn't been shared in any other podcast. That will be an interesting thing, an inspirational story that gets you up every day and reminds you, hey, I gotta do this. I gotta do this for myself. Gotta do this for my family. Gotta do this for
hmm
me. Do you have any inspirational breaking point stories kind of thing? I'm sure you have.
Yes, I'm pretty sure I have one at the top of my head. It's always something that I, I'm really proud of, one, and also something that I really consider as one of the best values that I have. I always value my family. Yes, it's weird. It's not weird. I'm sorry. In the Filipino sense of it all, that family comes first is not really that weird. It's just
Hmm.
that my life isn't what everyone always thinks about.
Hmm.
It thinks that it is about. Sorry. Um, how do I start this? Well, to tell you guys, so I guess this is one way that you guys will understand why I'm like this and why I am who I am right now. I didn't grow up with my biological parents. So, here's the thing. I'm going to drop the bomb. I am an adopted child. And I grew up with Chinese parents. And I am half Black American, half Filipino. Think about that.
It,
Really think hard about that.
it's
The
there. It's getting
identity
there.
crisis of it all.
It's there. It's digesting. It's digesting.
Digesting. All right.
Yeah.
So recap. I'm a half Black American, half Filipino who grew up with Chinese parents. There. So that's my life. I'm adopted, and it shaped who I really am right now. And the sense of having family that isn't really blood related to you
Hmm.
is gonna really confuse the heck out of you growing up. Because bakit hindi ko siya kamukha?
Hmm.
Bakit iba yung buhok niya? Bakit iba yung skin tone niya? Bakit ako maitim? Bakit ako kulot at siya tuwid?
Hmm.
Something like that.
Hmm.
Those are the things that confused me as a child.
Hmm.
I never understood why. And the best thing about it, this is why I really, really encourage my friends.
Hmm.
Even in podcasts, in our podcasts, it always reflects on the topics that I tend to tell
Hmm.
to people, or to give sample to, and examples to. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
It's almost always about family because I really value my family. And it's one thing that I learned, that life is short and you only get to be with them in one lifetime.
Mm.
to be inspirational about it is probably for me is being too pretentious, because you never really you never really get along all the time with your family. There will always be fights. There will always be things to, issues within the family. And that's one thing that I really appreciate the most. It's weird, no? I appreciate the issues. I appreciate the fights. I
Mm.
appreciate the bickering within family members, because it's for me it's a sign that they care.
Mm.
It's a sign that you belong to the family in on some levels,
Mm.
because for me belonging to a family has always been my core being. You know what I mean.
Mm.
I always don't want to be feel like I'm being left out, because I never knew my real parents. I only know my foster parents. So it shaped who I am today, in a sense that I always wanted to belong into groups.
Mm.
I always wanted to, which is also why I think we decided to create the podcast, which
Mm.
is also why I loved being with podcast PH, and being able to talk to and being included in,
Mm.
basically everything. Ako yung social butterfly na tinatawag nila, na gusto makisali sa kung saan-saan.
I agree. I agree with that.
And you agree? Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, right now, having my own son, meeting for the very first time my own blood, flesh and blood, is mind blowing to me. Because I mentioned a while ago, I never met my parents, my real parents,
Yeah.
flesh and blood. And seeing my son I'm gonna cry. Seeing my son for the first time is something so mind blowing to me. And yeah, that's it. That's one thing that you guys maybe could, if you're listening to this, maybe will be able to understand. And the idea of having this family, even though I'm not related to them by blood,
Mm.
is something that gets me going, because I know I have a home to get home to. What? I have a home to go back to. I have a home to get home to. What is English ba? Ayun, I have a home to go back to. And I always have people that will always welcome me. And it's something very special to me. That's the value. That's my core value. Family. Tada!
Wow.
I don't know how to end it, so I said tada.
Yeah, I mean, wow, you nearly got me there as well. You're the second guest that actually made me tear up, just so you know.
Aww. Aww. So
But
sorry.
yeah, that's wow. That's over digest.
Speechless ka.
Yeah, that's over digest. To wrap up that conversation, yeah, it has been mind blowing. It has been an unfiltered. I think that's a line:
Uncensored.
unfiltered, uncensored, and it felt like I was a part of the
Relatable.
yeah. I was part of the brain cells conversation. It was nice. It's nice feeling. And
Yeah, it's such a
before we go,
shame, by the way, that
mm,
we weren't able to have you in our show. Ah, that's a missed opportunity for us. Like, this energy could have been so amazing in that show.
yeah,
Maybe someday, if we decide to revive Brain Cells, maybe you're going to be the first person who's going to be a guest in that show.
awesome. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, to wrap this conversation off, of course, I'm sure our listeners are looking forward to finding you. How do they find you on social media if they want to interact with you?
Okay, well, you can find me if you find Brain Cells. De joke lang. Yeah, that's one way. You go ahead and look for Brain Cells. That's BR4INCELLS. And you'll find me there. I'm always tagged on all the posts. But if you want to find my profile, it's Aguavida Loca on Instagram. So if AGUA, how do I spell? VIDA LOCA. Oh my god. What is spelling? My weakest point. And I'm on Facebook. It's just Hillary Aguada. You can find me. The easiest way that you can find me is to find Brain Cells first. So Brain Cells is available. Ayan, napaplug ko na. Pwede na ba?
Pwede na, pwede na, pwede na.
Is this the
Go,
part?
go.
Yay! Okay, this is the part. So Brain Cells is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Radio. What's that? What's that? Radio.
Sige,
What's
go
that
lang, go
called?
lang.
Google Podcast. Radio Public. There we go. Radio Public, Google Podcast, and all of the other podcast platforms out there. Breaker, Anchor. It's BR4INCELLS. Oh my god, it's been so long since I did this. And we're also on YouTube. It's also BR4INCELLS. And we're very easy to find. We're all pink. So pink.
Yeah,
It looks like a vagina of Tinkerbell. Sorry to mess up your childhood. Yon.
yeah.
Ganun po kami ka-unfiltered, uncensored, and relatable.
Whew, what an amazing, amazing conversation. I hope my listeners enjoyed this conversation and learned a lot about Hillary and a lot about swimming and a lot of stuff that I haven't mentioned. I mean, you guys have to go back and back listen if you guys. Good luck with that. Uh, I want to thank my guest Hillary Aguada, um, and thank you for at least having this conversation with me. This has been an amazing, exciting, interesting. I
Yeah.
think yeah, it's been a signature of mine that the word interesting is gonna be my tagline, the hashtag interesting or whatever hashtag people are gonna come up with. Uh, I want to say thank you for having this conversation. 5 months. I can't believe it's been 5 months since I've asked you and I've got to meet you guys. And um, hopefully down the line, I hope you guys would come back to the Rajiv show. If you're in town, hopefully the Rajiv show vlog. I think I'm working on it yet. I'm still working on how
Is up.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it goes there, hopefully if it goes there, probably we'll see. I'm always going to feature you guys because I always look up to you guys as the top notch brain cells and the top notch podcast to go through when you want to start listening and you want to get an idea of how podcasting feels. So thanking you was the longest itself. Imagine how the other conversations were. But yes, I want to thank you again. Thank you
Even
so
the
much.
opening was
Yeah, I
long.
know. I
Yeah.
know.
Thank you, Rajiv. As always, you have been this big ball of energy, and I enjoyed. I really do enjoyed. I really did enjoy this episode, and my God, I really want to get back to podcasting right now, like freaking right now. Tawagin ko na sila Lucila Aiko. Magpo-podcast na kami. Pero yeah, we're really taking it very slow and we're really considering it. And Rajiv, you are amazing. You are an amazing conversationalist. You have a lot of topics that from this podcast, this episode, we really had like a lot to talk about.
True.
And that's one good trait of a great podcaster. And I do see you, soaring the heights of rankings on on podcasting.
I'm
We
getting
do
there.
have rankings, right?
Eventually,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
getting
getting
there.
there.
Yeah.
You will. You will get there. And seeing as how energetic you are and how enthusiastic you are talking to people, being a delight, if I say in the British sense. You're such a delightful person. I don't know British, but I've been watching The Crown. But really, thank you very much, Rajiv.
Yeah.
I've been rambling, and this is the longest goodbye to this
Yeah.
episode.
And for those who are listening out there, folks, I hope you learned a thing or two. I'm sure you heard a lot of stuff that you learned. Folks, stay safe and cheers. I will see you in the next episode. Cheers, folks.
Cheers.